We have so many features in development and they're all kind of like nearing production at the same time.
So today we welcome Peter. He is the CEO of the premier DEX on Hedera, Saucerswap. Peter, thanks for jumping on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Brandon.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. Now, it's been a little while since we've had you on before. Can you tell us just a bit about yourself and what brought you to Hedera and Saucerswap?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Peter Campbell. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Saucerswap Labs. I got into Hedera the same way a lot of people did. I bought some HBAR back in, I think, 2021. I started digging into the tech, watched all the Lehman Baird talks. Shout out to the Harvard lecture. I think that was like the turning point for a lot of people, and just got into the rabbit hole then. I got really deep into it. My background is not in tech or finance. I actually studied music composition in my undergrad and then did film directing at Columbia for my master's. So not the usual path, but I think it actually helped. Working in creative fields, you get used to thinking about the audience and the user and how it feels, what expectations they have, how you can guide expectations. And I think that's actually helped a lot with product. So since we launched Saucerswap, I've been kind of obsessive about the user experience and trying to make sure that what we build works for our user and that it feels intuitive. So we launched Saucerswap about 3 years ago. It was August of 2022. And that basically kicked off DeFi on Hedera. Since then, we have worked with, the greats like Hashpack, Dovu, Galaxy, Karate Combat. There's a lot to name. And honestly, we wouldn't be here without the folks at Hashgraph, the Hedera Foundation, the Hashgraph Association. So want to give them due credit. They have done a lot of heavy lifting and have shaped Hedera DeFi to what it is today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the journey for Saucerswap itself and, what you can attribute the success to becoming that number one DEX on Hedera. Why do you think you guys have been so successful?
A large part of it was being at the right place at the right time. We launched when there was no DeFi ecosystem. So there was certainly a component of just being the first mover on the network. But since then, we've just been keeping our heads down and building. From day one, it's been about execution. We have seen kind of like the pitfalls of DeFi on other networks where it's like a fast burning candle. So we're trying to have no fluff, no hype, just ship features and value that brings, real utility to the ecosystem and the community. We're also super picky internally about quality. So if we're going to launch something, we want it to actually move the needle. We don't roll out features just for the sake of it. We try to stay focused on what our users actually want and will use. And that's all been super important, like internally, but it is an ecosystem. And honestly, a big part of the growth is the interconnectedness of the various projects. So Hashpack gets 95% of the accounts, like the wallet activity, right? And they made onboarding super easy. And that is so valuable. Hedera gave us a network that is actually fast and reliable and performant. And the foundation has been instrumental in, especially recently, bringing on the projects that we need to grow the ecosystem from here. So I think we'll probably get into that in the next question. But that's been the journey so far.
Well, that is a perfect segue into the next question. What else does the Hedera DeFi space need? Both things that, the Saucerswap team can help with, and then things that might require other teams and talent.
Yeah, so a few things. I think number one is still interoperability. We need more cross-chain liquidity, and we need more and better ways to move assets in and out of the network. We are working on that through a governance proposal right now with Bonzo Finance Labs. for V2 layer zero pools. So we have a governance request for comment on our forum. It's gov.saucerswap.finance. And it's for wrapped ETH and wrapped Bitcoin version 2 concentrated liquidity pools. So go check that out. I think that will be big. Aside from interoperability, I think the other big thing is what's natively being built on the network. I think we need to see more tokens launching natively on Hedera. That's what drives volume, activity, new users, the whole flywheel that we're targeting. I mean, if you just go on, for example, like Jupiter on Solana, like the amount of tokens they launch is ridiculous. It happens like several times a minute. We've seen hints of that before. Early Saucerswap days, we saw a bunch of tokens launching. The memejob.fun run had a bunch of tokens launching. And then Hashpack rolled out their in-wallet token creator. That helped a lot. But so far, it has not been the consistency that we need. So right now, we are seeing signs of that picking up. I don't know if you saw or covered the Libra Capital showing up on DeFi Llama. I think it was like 3 days ago.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, so that one's pretty interesting. They're working on fund issuance and distribution, which is good news for RWAs. By the way, they showed up on the Hedera dashboard on DeFi Llama. They're already on other networks. I think they have like 100 million in TVL across all the networks. So I think the vision is that we need a mix of assets on the network. We need those blue chip assets in ample liquidity coming from bridges onto Hedera. We need real world assets either coming from other networks or being launched natively on the network. And meme coins. We need the whole lot. And the vision for us is to have a fluid layer where all of those different sectors can interface in a permissionless environment where users can trade meme coins and RWAs and blue chip assets, and for it to be that connective tissue that kind of lets all of those systems interact.
Really well covered. I do love some of the tokens that we have in our space and some new ones that are coming out. I think that Sealcoin that's going to be dropping, Circle of Games. We have some really good tokens that are coming. All the stuff that's going to be built on Up Layer 2 alongside Karate Combat. I think those are all good ones. But you have a good point. There are some other ecosystems out there that are far larger, and we need to compete on that front as well. But you mentioned RWAs, and that's a place where Hedera could see, a leg up in a lot of places, considering what we're seeing in refi and some of the other traditional spaces. Is there any feedback as far as what we're seeing in the regulatory environment? Could those things actually be traded on something like Saucerswap?
I think so. I mean, there's still not that clarity that we need around RWAs, but the Genius Act passing, for example, is a step in the right direction, I think. There is that question around, can you trade regulated assets on a permissionless DEX? And it's still not answered, but it seems like the direction is that the issuance and like the remittance, et cetera, of regulated assets is where you basically gatekeep, and you can have permissionless trading environments. That is kind of what we're tracking, and we can get into this later, but we have this ERC20 wrapper that should help interface with regulated assets as well.
So I am curious because Hedera does have the ability to KYC the accounts themselves, so the ones that would be trading. So if something like Saucerswap were to just flag and make sure that the KYC had been done on the account, I could see how that could work. The solutions are out there. We just need to find them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a question I actually got for Shark Bites, but I thought it would be actually better for you. Now, Saucerswap has done a fantastic job. It really, from what I've seen, it's really all we need, but we've had other DEXs launch on the Hedera network, and they've just struggled to get the TVL that we've seen with Saucerswap. Do you think that we need another DEX that is more of a competitor for Saucerswap that has similar kinds of TVL?
So it's a nuanced question. And my answer is, if that DEX brings in new capital and new users Absolutely. That's good for everyone. That's good for Saucerswap. If it's just slicing up the same pie,
Sure.
not so much. I think overall competition in any market is healthy, but we want to make sure that we're not just, fragmenting what value we already have and we're building new value. We've been looking at certain metrics on the network and, trying to track why specifically is Hedera not performing like other DeFi ecosystems. And the one metric we keep coming back to is capital velocity. More players in the space, if they're building seriously, can help with capital velocity. And we actually tracked basically liquidity and volume and capital velocity, and it's about an order of magnitude below some other networks. That screams opportunity to us. We are not worried about other DEXs coming online. The network needs more options, users having more avenues to explore, different projects, different utilities, more tokens. That's a good thing. And I think it'll be up to the market to figure out where value flows. From our side, we're just going to keep building and let our work speak for itself.
I think that's a good strategy. It's been working to this point. So what's next for Saucerswap? Do you have any new features that you'd like to highlight?
We have a ton, and it's kind of frustrating right now because we have so many features in development and they're all kind of like nearing production at the same time. But to give like a really quick overview, we are, first of all, rolling out a full website rebuild. It's not just visual. It's not like a facelift of the website. It's architectural. And one of the big upgrades, and I think you'll appreciate this one, is real-time pricing. So right now we have per minute pricing is the lowest interval. And basically all of Hedera DeFi runs on that per minute price data. We have gathered more information about projects using our API. It is, believe it or not, over 60 projects use the Saucerswap API. And that per minute price data is the highest fidelity data that we have. Now, if you're thinking about the performance of the Hedera network, there's like a dissonance there between the performance of Hashgraph, the Hedera network, and that per minute price data. So we're moving to per second price updates. We'll be able to build candles in real time at a really high fidelity as they happen. And that kind of responsiveness, going back to how can we make the network competitive, users expect that now, especially when they're coming from places like Solana where things feel snappier, even if, the actual network performance isn't better. So I think that that update is going to do some heavy lifting. Another one is we're almost done with our mobile application. That includes a built-in wallet. And I want to make something very clear about the wallet. There's been some discussion around this. I saw this is in no way meant to compete with Hashpack or any of the other wallet providers on the network. Hashpack in particular has been our main partner from day one. But if you go in the App Store and you look at what DEXs have mobile apps like Uniswap and Jupiter, they build in a wallet into their app. And you have to do this. There's just no way around it. You have to do it to meet the App Store guidelines. So if we could have done, an integration with Hashpack directly, that would have been our first option, but we couldn't. So we're building our own wallet. And that app is coming both to iOS and Android. And we did release some wireframes. We actually have the designs coming in. I think it looks awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited about that feature. Last thing is, just because we talked about this before, we have an ERC20 wrapper. It's going for audit now. That's going to help smooth out the friction between ERC20 assets that either launch natively or come through bridges onto Hedera so they can interface with the Hedera token service through our smart contracts. The goal is to reduce liquidity fragmentation and try to avoid like two different token standards on the network. If I had to bet, I think mobile app real-time pricing are the next two things to come out.
So, Peter, one of the other things that I heard about was that Saucerswap is looking at trying to mimic limit orders. And of course, for people that are used to traditional exchanges and centralized exchanges, that'll be more native for them. So are you looking at doing something like that? I could certainly see it being useful in the future. When might something like that come to market?
Yeah, we are developing that feature, and the architecture that we are designing for it allows for a number of use cases, actually. So there's a lot of latitude built in, but three things that is in the acceptance criteria for the initial launch is limit orders, stop loss orders, and dollar cost averaging. So those are the first three things to come online. Again, the architecture does allow for more. And once we launch those first three, we can get into the kind of extensibility of it.
All right, Peter. Well, this has been a great talk. I wish you the greatest success. You've had so much success to this point. I know that that's going to continue. Thanks for coming on today, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
I'm now posting these interviews of Hedera builders independently to my channel. The community, influencers, and media outlets are free to use this content to spread the word on what's being built on Hedera. Once they're all uploaded, you'll be able to go to my channel and search for whatever topic or team you're interested in to find more information. Or you'll be able to get the most recent Hedera news by watching the latest HBAR Weekly update. So check them out.